All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down this Thursday night showing here between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. Should be a good one. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, guys, this is expected to be a very high-scoring game, 54.5 total points, with the Lions actually, I thought, strangely favored to win by 3 points here in this game. That being said, we are just obviously trying to attack and stack just a lot of the pass catchers. It's probably going to be a pass-heavy game. It's going to be a very high-scoring game, so we're not likely to play any defensive players. And this is what kind of makes it tough because we know we need to be loading up on the studs, and we do have a decent amount of studs here on this slate. Now, guys, that being said, we are seemingly going to get some value here with the Detroit Lions. With ASB, I think he's going to be likely to sit. We also know that Brock Wright is still out, as well as Khalif Raymond. And so we could be looking at some of these backups to get some work here as well. So like Ross Dwelly is somewhat appealing as a good value option. He ended up with 3 targets last week, but only 1 reception on 3 yards. Still, if we're looking for a value play that's going to be on the field a bunch, he has something that makes sense, guys. I ended up playing 73% of the snaps total, so not a terrible punt play. Tom Kennedy got a lot of usage in last week's game, playing in 67% of the snaps, 73% route share. Obviously, he's someone that gets a very good matchup here as well. The issue that I have, the slight concern that I have, is maybe he doesn't get as much work, where last week he was thrust into a role because he was the one that was active. We do expect other receivers to be active. Maybe he doesn't get as much work, but overall, I still think Tom Kennedy is going to be on the field a decent amount, especially in 11 personnel. And so I don't mind the idea of chasing his production at that cheap price tag. I will say the safer bet and a very solid price tag play for us would be Isaac Tesla here as well, who ended up playing 92% of the snaps, had a 97% route share, only ended up with 2 targets and got 2 receptions, did end up scoring a touchdown. He has been known for making some pretty good touchdowns, guys, 3 touchdowns on the year. Both defenses actually give up a ton of touchdowns to opposing receivers. I wouldn't be shocked to see Tesla end up having a pretty big game here in this game. I don't mind the idea of chasing it. The issue is we haven't seen him have more than 2 receptions in a game thus far this season. I still think, though, value-wise, especially for the slate, he is kind of a starting point for us, and then we can work our way elsewhere. So from there, what can we do with the top-end studs? That, again, is going to be the issue with the slate. I really think Williams is kind of still going to be a very great captain play and maybe not as good of a flex play. Great captain play because I expect him to continue to do what he's done over the past month now, where he's just dominated, especially now with ASB looking like he's going to sit. I think Jameson Williams makes for one of the best, if not the best, captain choice on this slate. The one concern that I have is that they might be able to scheme up a way to slow him down, maybe. I don't expect that, but you take Sam Laporte out, you also take ASB out, then, there's a little bit more defensive attention to go to Jameson Williams. Now, if we were doing something like this, then obviously we would have to get to Jared Goff as our quarterback, who I do expect to have a pretty solid game in this game against Dallas. The only concern that you ever have with Jared Goff is whether or not he's going to have time to throw the football, and I think he should have that here against the Cowboys. Last week I did mention I thought it would be more of a David Montgomery game and less of a Jahmyr Gibbs game, just because that type of running back, the David Montgomery type of running back, is how you attack that Packers defense. But we still saw Jahmyr Gibbs get 24 opportunities in that game, and I think this is going to be a good bounce back spot for him. So if we're prioritizing Gibbs or Goff, I would rather get to Gibbs just because of that upside. But this is the conundrum of the slate, right? I really like Jameson Williams. I think Kennedy and Tesla are great values. But if we're doing something like this, it does make the rest of the build a little bit more difficult. Still, I think we can play them and see if we can figure it out from there. So for Dallas, guys, we do know the 3 players we want to be on the most. It's Dak, it's Lamb, and it is Pickens. I'm actually really shocked at the price tags that we are getting for both Lamb and Pickens. I expect them both to go off and have a very good game. It is a little bit of a guessing game as to which one of the 2 might go off, but their prices to me are pretty crazy. And then we also take a peek at Dak Prescott, guys. Dak Prescott, you would certainly expect to go off here as well. If we are choosing between Jared Goff and Dak, I would much rather go with Dak. And so no matter what lineup we end up on, we are going to be fading some sort of stud, and that is obviously a concern for us. On top of that, if we look at the value that we could be getting for the Dallas Cowboys, it just makes sense to go with the value that we're getting for the Lions. And so the value that we're getting for the Cowboys is Turpin, who we'll have a few design plays for him. And then you guys have Flournoy, who ended up playing almost 40% of the snaps. If this game ends up being a little bit of a shootout, it wouldn't be surprising to see him have a good game. And then, I mean, both kickers are somewhat in play. Jake Ferguson, I don't mind, but he gets a little bit more of a difficult matchup. I also don't hate the idea of getting to Javonte Williams a little bit, but also it's pretty easy to say Dak, Lamb, and Pickens. That's what we want to get to. Like, that is the roster construction here for this slate. And so for this specific build that I'm going to give you guys, I think it makes sense to go Dak and then one of the receivers. We have $1,000 left over. Okay, don't necessarily love that, but also that's kind of just the way the slate's going to work out. And I don't hate this. Like, it makes sense. We're getting Jared Goff with 3 pass catchers. That's definitely a little bit too much exposure. But then we're getting Dak with CeeDee Lamb. I do like that a decent amount. And that's just how the slate's going to work out. Like, there's just no way around it. Now, this is how I see the slate going. Me personally with my hand builds. Let's go ahead and see what the 9-to-5 data is telling us is the best builds for the slate. And then I did want to mention just Hunter Lemke real quick before we get into the lineups. He should not be $400. He should probably be $1,000 more expensive. Like, if you need a punt to someone that's under $1,000, like, he makes sense. He's not guaranteed to get points, but also he could be someone that ends up with 6 DFS points, and that wouldn't be shocking as well. He's just clearly mispriced. Now, again, he's not guaranteed to do anything, but worth calling out. And so let's go ahead and take a peek at the top lineups that it is given to us, guys. Did get to a lot of Tesla and Tom Kennedy. Don't mind that. The best build is Lamb, Gibbs, Pickens, Williams, Tesla, and then Tom Kennedy. Again, that's not too shocking. Preferably, I'd like to get to Dak or Goff in those builds, and that's kind of the difficult part, again, about this slate. It does make sense, though, why it's getting to CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, and then Williams and Gibbs over the quarterbacks, just because, well, Lamb and Pickens are too cheap, as is Jameson Williams, and so it's prioritizing them. And that does make sense as well. And so it is a weird slate. It's a fun slate, but it's definitely weird in regards to the roster construction that we're going to be on. And then typically I don't talk about like ownership too much because it'll typically change a lot before lineup lock, but let's just go and take a peek at it. A lot of people are getting to Jake Bates here, guys. I don't hate that, but I also don't need to get to it. That's going to update, I'm pretty sure. But he is a punt play. A lot of lineups are getting to Gibbs, Dak, and Goff. So naturally, I think just getting to Lamb and Pickens more makes sense. And then they're not really getting to a lot of Tesla or Tom Kennedy, which again, I think Tesla is a pretty good starting point for tonight's slate, assuming that St. Brown ends up sitting. If St. Brown plays, it doesn't really change much for me, guys. Okay. I think we would still be prioritizing the plays that I mentioned for Detroit. We probably just wouldn't be looking at like Tom Kennedy. I think if St. Brown plays, it's going to be more of a decoy rather than a must roster type of play. And so it does muddy up the game a little bit. Maybe Jared Goff is actually a little bit more appealing. Maybe Ross Dwelly's not really anyone we're looking at, but I think Tesla is still a good play. And I still think we would be prioritizing getting to CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, then probably even a little bit more. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Good luck with all your lineups tonight. If you guys would like access to that 9-to-5 lineup builder, head on over to 9to5sports.com. I'm going to be pushing an update on that, a slight update on that later today as well, that members will be able to notice. All the tools available on the website are available for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. I appreciate you guys being here. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.